So tonight, I want to just bring a little lesson on how to avoid conflicts with people. Because if we can learn how to avoid conflicts with people, it'll make it easier to love them, like we're commanded to do. Amen? And another reason I want to do this is because, you know what? It's easier to avoid a conflict than it is to solve one. So if we can prevent conflict and arguments and disagreements and hurt feelings in your marriage is going to be better. If we can help you to avoid conflict on the job with people around you, if we can help you to avoid conflict with your neighbor, then you're going to be able to love them like the Bible commands us to. Let's think about that. A politician was talking with me, and after he finished talking, I just kind of said, okay, it was good to visit with you. And I turned and I walked away, and a staff member who was with me said, "Preacher, why didn't you tell that politician you didn't agree with him?" And I said, well, first of all, it would start at a debate. At home, we wouldn't call it a debate. We'd call it a what? Argument. You got it right. And I said, you know what? It wasn't worth a debate. I would not have changed his mind. He wouldn't have changed my mind. And I said, besides that, I said, I'm hungry. I want to go eat. I said, let's go eat. You know what? If you would just learn to maybe not get into debate so much, you'd have more time to do the things that you really want to do. So let me give you some thoughts tonight. Number one, do not start a statement with a negative comment. Unfortunately, some people's hobby is arguing. How many of you know somebody, they just like to argue? Well, all right? A lot of them around, aren't they? Now, when somebody presents an idea that you don't agree with, instead of saying you disagree, maybe you can just say something like this. You say, well, have you ever thought about this? That politician that I was talking to, I said, you know, I'm not going to change his mind. He's not going to change mine. If I tell him what I really think about that, it's not going to change his mind, so I might as well not even bring it up. Just go on. That way he'll like me. And I didn't like him when I walked away, but he would like me because I didn't disagree with him. Number two, don't volunteer your opinion all the time. You know, there's nothing in the Bible that says, thou must voice your opinion all the time. I mean, when you know that there's things that you disagree with your relatives, don't bring it up. But you know what? We like to stick our nose in other people's business, don't we? We like to try to tell other people how to do things. But what happens? This creates arguments. This creates disagreements. And when you get into an argument and disagreement with somebody, it's going to be harder to love your neighbor as yourself. So it's important, number three, have clearly defined areas of authority. It's best really for people to budget their money, and the husband and the wife to have some free money. You know, a wife shouldn't have to ask her husband for money to buy a package of chewing gum. But if you're going to be home all day, or if you're going on vacation, you know, people many times that go on vacation together don't come back friends. And why is that? Because when you go on vacation, somebody's got to drive. If somebody's got to drive, then everybody's got their way of driving. Everybody's got their way of directions, and there needs to be clearly defined. If you're going to drive, then you get unless the driver says, "Would you help me with the directions?" You'll just keep your mouth shut and let them drive. You know, that's their area of responsibility. The other thing is that we vote on deacons, and then we vote on new church members. By our bylaws, that's only 3 decisions that are made at the annual church business meeting. Why? To cut down on decision making, because when you cut down on decision making, then you cut down on the chance that there can be disagreement, and then if there's disagreement, there can be arguments, and more churches are split over because of business meetings than anything else. Number 4, do not demand your area of authority. When somebody comes up and disagrees with you, like let's say somebody comes up and says, "Bill, I think we ought to sing more hymns." You know, you don't have to tell people you're not going to do what they suggest. You don't have to tell your husband or your wife that you really disagree with them. You know, if she says, "Listen, I don't want you wearing that anymore," just say, "Okay, thank you," and then wear it whenever you want to. Now, number 5, if you do have a disagreement, make it a point to be real friendly to the person that you've had a disagreement with within 24, 48 hours. If you do have a disagreement, make it a point to be real friendly to the person as soon as afterwards as possible. Number 6, do not give your opinion if you know someone else in authority has given advice already. Because you're not the boss. You don't have the authority to change the rules. So why voice it? Why express it? All it's going to do is cause disagreements, cause disenchantment. It's going to cause bad morale in the company or in the home or in the church. I mean, why express it? If you do, what it's going to do, it's going to make it harder for you to love your neighbor as yourself. And it says, listen, if you can't love the people that you can see, how in the world are you going to love God that you can't see? You know what we do in politics a lot? We sit around and we talk about what the government ought to do. But we're really, until we go to the ballot box, we're in no position to do anything about it. You know, I've got so many things to do, and you probably do too, that, you know, if you're not careful, you'll spend time talking about things that you can't do anything about. Most leaders are opinionated, and of course, I have my opinions and I have my knowledge. But I also realize that I don't have knowledge in some areas. You know, the reason we have a hard time loving each other is because we deal with areas that we don't have the authority. We've not been delegated that authority. We express our opinion, or we feel like we just have to tell people what we think. And by doing that, it creates problems. Number 7, if someone disagrees with your opinion, if possible, don't respond immediately. Wait a few days. Because most of the time, if we respond immediately, we respond the wrong what? Way. That's exactly right. And after we stop and think about it. There's been so many times in my life that I've responded immediately, and I just wish I'd kept my mouth shut.